Hi friends, welcome to my kitchen and welcome to another Sunday with Sarah. Today I am going to share a video how to do wet on wet watercolor painting as it's practiced in a Waldorf school. Now you may have seen my original tutorial on wet watercolor painting. It was actually the very first video I ever did before I launched the Sunday with Sarah series. But that was so long ago, it was years ago when YouTube would only let you have a certain length video, and I had to do it in 2 parts, which was awkward. A lot of people didn't find the second part, and then I got a lot of feedback that at the end I never held up the painting to show you what I had done. So for years now I've wanted to re-record this video, so here it is. Now, why wet on wet watercolor painting? What is wet on wet watercolor painting? Well, it's a technique that's commonly practiced in Waldorf schools, especially in the early grades. And what it is that we're going to soak the paper. The paper is wet. You're applying the wet paints on the wet paper, and the colors are going to flow and move across the page. So when we paint in the early childhood years, say 3 years old to 6 or 7 years old in the nursery and kindergarten, our goal is to just give children an experience of the color, the quality of each color, and teach them the technique for holding the brush and not letting the colors get too muddy. Later, when they get to the grade school, they will start painting figurative paintings, pictures of things. But again, what I'm going to demonstrate today is just the color experience that we give the children. So let's talk about what you're going to need to get started. First, you're going to need a painting board. Now, this painting board is offered at Bella Luna Toys, and this is made of recycled plastic, and it's a special plastic made in Europe that's actually biodegradable. And one reason I prefer plastic to wood or masonite painting boards, which you may have seen, is that it's warp resistant. Over time, wooden boards can warp as well as masonite. So I've got one of our plastic boards here. You're going to need paper, of course, and we use a heavy artist grade paper. This is 140-pound weight, and when you give a child quality paper, it's a much more satisfying experience. A lot of times in mainstream preschools, teachers are giving children very cheap and inexpensive materials, and it's not a satisfying experience. The end result is not as beautiful. Also, this heavyweight paper will not bubble up so much or pill. When you do this wet on wet technique and you rub it with a sponge, as I'm going to show you, cheaper paper will pill. The fibers will come up. So I highly recommend a heavyweight artist grade paper. Again, it is available at Bella Luna Toys. And I've got my paper soaking in the sink behind me, and you're going to want to soak your paper before you begin painting for about 10 or 15 minutes. It can sit a little longer. The reason for this is that commercial paper has a sizing material on it, and by soaking it, it removes that so that your painting, when it's drying, won't bubble up or buckle or have the edges curl. So we've got our painting board. I've got some water here for mixing my paints. I've got 3 colors here of Stockmar watercolor paint. This is the paint that's most commonly used in Waldorf schools for watercolor painting. But you could also use watercolor paint that comes in little tubes that you get at an art supply store. That will work just as well. To begin with, in the early childhood years, we use only 3 colors, the 3 primary colors. And with these 3 colors, we can mix all the colors of the rainbow. And so I have carmine red, lemon yellow, and ultramarine blue. And these 3 will blend very beautifully together. Here I have a painting jar holder. It comes with 3 jars for each color of paint. These again are available at Bella Luna Toys. You don't need to have the jar holder. It's nice because it keeps them from spilling over, keeps them neat and handy, but you could also just use baby food jars and have them on your table. I've got a jar here that I'm going to fill with water to, we'll use it to rinse our paintbrush. And I've got a sponge. We're going to wipe the paper clean. I've got 3 jars to mix these paints, which I'll show you in a minute, and a chopstick to stir them with. So if you're ready, let's get started. So here's the paper that's been soaking in my sink. If you don't have a sink that's the right size, you can also use a plastic tray. This paper, our paper, is 15 by 11 inches. So as long as the shallow tray you have would fit the size paper you have, you can use that and just have it on your table. So when you take the paper out of the water, you'll notice that it has a rougher side and a smoother side. Now you want the smooth side to go down on your painting board. The rough side is going to stay up. That's the side we paint on. And the reason for that is the texture of that side is going to attract and hold the paints better. So the next step is to take my sponge, and a clean sponge. Now you might want to have another sponge after you've been painting for a while and you want to wipe your painting board clean. You can have a special sponge just for that. But when you wipe your paper, you want to make sure it's a clean sponge. You're going to wipe any extra water away and push out any air bubbles so that it's not too wet, not too shiny, but also not too dry. Next, we're going to mix our paints. And people often ask me, how much paint should I use? How much water? What measurements? I've never really measured. I just do it by feel. I just take a dollop of paint. Maybe it would be about a teaspoon. About that much. And this is a half pint size jar, a 1 cup jar. And these paints are very super concentrated. So you never paint with these undiluted. They're very strong. They're meant to be diluted with water. So if you order a bottle and see how small it is, don't worry, because a little goes a long way. So I've got my dollop of paint in the jar, and I'm going to just add water. I like mixing it with the chopstick. And it's not an exact science. Some teachers prefer more pastel colors for young children and might dilute with more water. I like bright colors. I like to really give the children a color experience. So ideally, you wouldn't use a new sheet of paper, but maybe a scrap to kind of test the strength of your color. And that's quite strong still. I'm going to add a little bit more water. Now we're not going to use all this paint when we paint today. When we're finished, we can put a lid on this and store these in the refrigerator until the next painting day, the next time you want to paint with children. And you know what? Now I feel like that's a little bit too weak. So what I can do is just add a teeny bit more paint. "Ah, this paint is just right," said Goldilocks. So I'm going to do the same with blue and yellow and mix up jars of those paints. Once I do that, I'll be right back with you. Okay, I've got all my paints now have been mixed with water. Now, one thing, I did things a little bit out of order before. I would recommend that you get your paints all mixed before you take your wet paper and put it on the painting board so that the paper doesn't dry out. But so now I've got the right dilutions of paint. I'm going, for the children, I'm going to put just a little bit in each jar in the painting jar holder. Very little is needed for a painting. Just about that much, just a little more than covers the bottom. Trouble is, children, especially the younger they are, they will muddy the colors by not cleaning their brush well. I'm going to do this over here so I don't stain the wood. So you don't want to waste a lot of paint, so you give them just as little as they need. Just as little as that, like so. Now, the younger the child, I would start with young children when I introduce this technique with just one color. And you'd be surprised with this technique how beautiful a painting can be with a single color, where there are light spots and dark spots of the color and how they play together. And if you're painting with red, say, I usually would introduce red in the fall at the beginning of the school year here in Maine when the leaves are turning red. And so you have various shades of pink and bolder red, and then we give the child an experience of the color red. Then we might introduce the color blue and paint only with blue for a while. Blue is nice to paint in the winter, and then yellow in spring and summer. But once children have gotten a bit of a handle on the technique and how to use their paintbrush, then I would introduce two colors. And the magic of two colors is, say you're painting with red and yellow, and the child is cleaning their brush, as you'll see in a minute, and suddenly they've discovered there's orange in their water. Where did the orange come from? So we're teaching them about color theory and without formal lessons, and then it's really only over the age of 4, certainly by 5, when children have enough technique that they're not going to muddy all their colors together. A 3-year-old, a 2-year-old is just going to blend all their colors together, and then they're going to get brown or gray, which is not very satisfying. So that's why I start with one color, then 2. We'll do red and yellow together, and then we find orange. We'll do blue and red together and discover purple, and then we'll do blue and yellow together and discover green. So, but today I'm going to show you painting with all 3 colors, and I usually start with the lightest color first so that my brush cleaning water stays fairly clean. So, and I always start with a little story about Tippy Brush, and this is Tippy Brush. And I would always have Tippy Brush on the child's place in a rag, which we're going to use to clean our brush, wrapped up like so. And I'd say one winter morning, in late winter, Tippy woke up and got out of bed, threw his covers off to greet the day. And Tippy would always start his day with a warm foot bath. And it felt so good to put his cold feet in the warm water. And before he got out, he would always wipe them on the side of the tub. And then he was ready to go out and play. And today he invited his friend Yellow to play with him. So Tippy dips his toes in Yellow and says, "Hello, Yellow, come play with me." "Okay," says Yellow. And out they went. And Tippy and Yellow played and played. And wherever they played, Yellow would shine his warm glow wherever they went and brightened up the snowy countryside. And they were having so much fun laughing and playing that soon Red wanted to play. But before Red can come and play, Tippy needs to wash his feet again very carefully. Wipe them on the side of the tub and dry them with a towel. And then Tippy says, "Hello, Red, come and play with us." And along came Red and said, "Oh, how much fun." And Red was bright and cheery. And then where Red and Yellow played, they discovered a third friend had come and joined them. And there was Orange. "Hello, Orange. Good morning to you." And then Tippy washes his feet again very carefully, wipes them on the side of the tub, dries them on the towel. And they saw Blue coming along to play and said, "Hello, Blue, come and play with us." And along came Blue. Blue was a little shy, kind of liked to stay at the edges. But Blue became a little less timid and started playing with Yellow and discovered a beautiful light spring green, which reminded them that spring was coming. And the three friends continued to play all morning. And discovered as they played all the beautiful colors of the rainbow that began to appear. And look, when Blue and Red played together, yet another friend came, and there was friend Purple. And the goal here is we're going to model for the children. If you're a teacher or a parent, we're going to paint with the children. So that means you would need one painting board and a paintbrush, and ideally, each person would have their own set of paints. And so by modeling this way, the children can imitate us. They're going to create their own painting, their own colors, but we're modeling the technique for them. And sometimes children will want to press too hard on their brush on this metal part. It's called the ferrule, and that will scratch the paper. So we can tell them that Tippy tiptoes very lightly on his toes, ever so lightly on his tiptoes. And so here, I found very difficult in my teacher training when I started learning this technique to only paint color and not paint form. My paintings at first all looked like maps, but the more practice you get with this and just let the colors play and dance on the page, the freer it is. And now when our paintings are all done, I would scratch the child's name or symbol in kindergarten, each child, rather than using their name, we had a symbol. One might be the flower or the snail or a tree. And I would just scratch their, say this is the flower symbol in there, or you could just put their names or initials on there. Of course, if you're painting with one child, you don't need to identify the painting. And then we're going to let these dry flat on the painting board so they don't curl. Once it's completely dry, you can take it off the painting board and it should dry flat. And once these are dry and finished, you can use them for so many things. You can make beautiful greeting cards with them. You can cut them up and make little gift tags. I would use them sometimes to make the child's symbol by using painted watercolor background and then drawing their symbol on them each. But they are beautiful. Everyone is unique and everyone is beautiful. And when you give children quality materials, it just gives them a whole different experience of art. It's not throwaway art. This is art that you're really going to want to keep and reuse. So I hope that gives you an idea how to use these materials. They're all available at Bella Luna Toys. If you have any questions, please leave them as a comment. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the Sunday with Sarah YouTube channel so that you'll be notified whenever I post a new video. So happy painting. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you next time.